trying to navigate this new computer. I have no idea what's going on. I've never used an Apple before. Scrolling is difficult.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Taste Like Music. Jason, Joe, and Cramser. You can see behind me, things are coming down, getting ready to move. Joe's got a new computer. He's coming at you in hi-fi. And Porcupine Tree week. We were going to do this the week that the new record came out and really like time things up and line it up, but had to push some things around to get Susie and the Banshees in. So we're coming with Porcupine Tree a week late. They did just put out a new record, though, not too long ago, called Closure Continuation. It's their 11th studio album, so that's how many we will be ranking. There are some EPs in the mix that we will not be counting, some live stuff that we're not counting as well. Just the core studio records. And yeah, what is your familiarity with Porcupine Tree before this week?
Never an album, just some stuff on mixes.
Pretty much the same thing. I heard 2 full albums way back. I don't even know, maybe college, before college. I heard a couple songs of theirs on the radio, and I downloaded a bunch from Kazaa or LimeWire, but it was just a collection of tracks. I really didn't know like anything about them, how they started, how they evolved, whatever. So this was an interesting week. I listened to like one of them or 2 back from doing album of the year because I wasn't crazy about the 2000s, so I was looking for stuff. They did not break into any of my top 5s, however.
Yeah, so people that have watched the channel for a long time may know that I had a decently big prog phase at one point in high school. Rush was my favorite band. I was really into Dream Theater for a little bit, saw them live. Was into like guitar shredder stuff too, like Joe Satriani and Steve Vai and all that stuff. So Porcupine Tree was on my radar, and I think my dad had Fear of a Blank Planet, I want to say, maybe, or In Absentia. I think he had something on CD, and I recall not thinking much of it, but I don't really remember it. So all of this was pretty much new, but it was kind of weird to me that there was this band that was kind of like in the mix with all the stuff I was listening to at the time, but they never really became something I listened to. So got to them this week, got through them all, and it's time to rank them. So let's do it. Who's going to kick it off? Cram. All right.
Yeah, I'm going to kick it off, and I'm going to apologize to the Porcupine Tree huggers. This is not going to be fun for Yin's guys. My number 11, I've got Stupid Dream, and I wish this week was a dream because it was stupid. I did not enjoy this week at all. Wasn't my least favorite band we've ever done, but all at once, 11 albums, I don't know. Here on Stupid Dream, the sound is getting very clean. Everything, I'm going to use the word generic a generic amount of times here. I find this band very generic. And especially here in like the mid to late 90s, it's getting really just polished and clean, and there's no bite, there's no snarl, there's no character, there's nothing, there's no style. It's just, everything's just like really right down the middle, streamlined, very just, non-consequential with its style. Not enough grit, not enough psychedelia, not enough experimentation. Like they're going for like a poppier version of what they do. The straightforward songs aren't that interesting, like Pure Neurotic. I don't get much feeling on this album or much of anything they do. A little bit of sax here, a little bit of moodiness on this album. I don't know, it's just more of the same of everything leading up to here. There's just like, This Is No Rehearsal just sounds like really bland post-grunge stuff with like better guitar noodling. I mean, the things with this band that I like the most are a lot of the guitar solos, sometimes when they use piano, and then sometimes I don't think Stephen Wilson is really that great of a singer, but sometimes they do this cool harmonized thing where it almost sounds like a new metal kind of CSNY kind of sound. And that's about it. Those are really the only moments I kind of like. You get those good harmonies on Baby Dream and Cellophane, but like Stop Swimming is really weak. I don't know, get more of this review to come. 2 stars. Stupid Dream, number 11.
I guess I'll go next. I usually say this before we start reviewing, but if you're new to this channel, we don't always like the bands we cover. We just pick a different band every week and rank all of the records, and we do all different types of bands. So you never quite know how we are going to feel.
And I will say, even though I've kind of let the cat out of the bag with how the rest of this is going to go for me, I do remember liking what Porcupine Tree that I did know before. So going into this, I was like, oh, this will be kind of cool to get into, you know, a little bit deeper here. But wasn't impressed, and was not just really wasn't in the mood for just like tedious prog rock this week. So that was tough.
All right. Well, I will try to get through this bottom review without spoiling how I feel about all 11. But my least favorite is Up the Downstairs, the second record. This one is still, I think, mostly just Steven Wilson. But unlike the first record, I think this one comes closer to sounding like an actual band, full band, than the debut does. But the problem is I hate the guitar tones. I hate the sound of the drums. For someone who's like so well known for his ability to record and to mix things, and you know, he's been given an opportunity to mix like all of these classic records for people, I just think some of these records sound super lousy. I think eventually he gets to a point in this catalog where they're properly recorded and sound quote unquote good, even if they're not exciting sounding. But these, I think some of the tones on these records are just really bad. There's also all of these like weird techno and electronic elements on this record that sound really dated. This came out in 93. The title track starts with synth bass and like this 4 on the floor drum beat, which is really awkward. It eventually breaks into like a hard rock riff, but that ambient electro stuff keeps like muttering along underneath the guitars. But I don't know, it makes it hard for me to decide if I prefer when he is singing or isn't singing. And it seems to be like whichever is happening is what I wish wasn't happening. Like there's like these long instrumental passages where I'm like, God, can we just get to some like melody and lyrics? And then he starts singing and I'm like, oh yeah, let's go back to just riffing on guitar. This is not good either. So I don't know, like a lot of modern prog and prog metal and stuff like that goes for impressive musicianship. And I feel like he knows that, and he's being like self-consciously cautious and reserved. Like he doesn't want to just shred and noodle all over the place. But then what are we doing here? Like, what am I supposed to be enjoying? There's nothing left if you take that away, really. So I don't know. I just did not enjoy this much. 2 stars.
This couldn't have started any worse. You're both just completely high. Just completely. Those are your bottom. No. The bottom is On the Sunday of Life. It's not really an album. It's just a bunch of sound clips. And you want to talk about noodling? This is just literally all noodles. Even the song that people said was good, Radioactive Toy, isn't. It's not good. It's boring as hell. It has absolutely no structure, no melodies, nothing. I can't believe this isn't the bottom for everyone. It's it's a demo. That's all it is. It's just him kind of stretching out and doing some stuff, and none of it's interesting. And I wouldn't have given this guy a record contract if I had heard this one, because it's real lousy. I have it at 1.5 stars. And yeah, I couldn't wait for it to be over. And that's it. So really, we all hated the bottom here, and I feel like you guys are continue hating because you basically just critiqued his entire style forever. Like you can't go back from what you said, Jason. There's no, it's over. It's over. Same with Cramser. Like it's just should just pack it in now, I think.
Yeah. Well, that's not my bottom, but to be fair, my favorite album is also very close to the bottom. So it's tight between number 1 and number 11, but my number 10 is Light Bulb Sun. I'm still at 2 stars here. Just another really wussy pussy attempt to like a cleaner, poppier sound here. It doesn't have any psychedelia really. It doesn't have any like harsh metal to it. The metal's so watered down and everything, and their psychedelia could use way more drugs. I don't know. Everything here is just so boring and just so non-inventive. And like what Jason was saying, like, you're going to be a prog rock band and you're known for your noodling, double down on that. Because I'll tell you what, there's not much interesting going on most of the time in the rhythm section of this band. It's just like, let's just do a straight ahead beat, do some ton fills and double bass occasionally. It is not that interesting at all. It is just boring alt rock drumming at mid tempo a lot of times. It's just not very interesting. This one, cleaner, poppier sound. This one is more rustic attempt. It's a little bit warmer. Some slide guitar. I don't really know if it fits. The bass at times throughout the catalog and on this album is kind of cool at times. It can be groovy, and there's some nice guitar cosmic vibes on here. I like How Is Your Life Today a decent bit. In general, there's just more plain tunes with simple backing drum tracks, very amateur writing. I don't think like they're, like when I read about their influences where they're like, man, they're really channeling King Crimson and Pink Floyd here. And I'm like, where? Come on. That's an insult to King Crimson and Pink Floyd, who have these awesome movements and these like really intricate time signatures and all this. And this is just like, let's slow it down and then pick it back up with a crash. That's not that complicated. Come on, guys. I can't really see it any other way. I don't think they write very interesting stuff. I don't think their style is cool at all. She's Moved On is quite lackluster. And the drums are just so mid and just so basic. Just predictable little filler parts here and that after just like these boring ass parts. The songs capture so little. Russia on Ice has some cool moments, but rather dull overall. Feel So Low is their attempt at like a heartbreak song. It's okay. 2 stars. Number 10, Light Bulb Sun. I'm done with this video already.
All right, this is going well. My number 10 is the record after my number 11, which is The Sky Moves Sideways, the third album from 1995. This record is basically the same as the record before it, but they take the Pink Floyd knob and crank it way up. And Cram said you can't hear the Pink Floyd, and it's an insult to Pink Floyd. But I mean, on this record, I think the Pink Floyd influence is so incredibly obvious. Like late 80s, early 90s, Momentary Lapse of Reason, Division Bell, Pink Floyd is what I'm talking here. So just these kind of like electronic sort of textures, ambient sort of stuff, and him playing this David Gilmour, basically copycat type of guitar leads over top of it. I don't know, all those 90s electronic elements are really annoying. That third part of phase 1 is just awful sounding, really lame, really cheesy, very dated sounding. Moon Touches Your Shoulder I think is okay, but I hate the drum sound on it. I don't know. Yeah, the only artistic goal here seems to be to play guitar like David Gilmour over what sounds like stock epic rock backing tracks. I don't know. It's over an hour long. It's completely uninteresting. It's basically elevator prog. I don't know. I didn't enjoy this one at all. So 2 stars.
Yeah, well, this is going real good. I can't wait to hear about all this in the comments section. It's gonna be fun to go through. My number 10 is going to be The Incident from 2009. It was the last album before an extended break, or maybe the band broke up so that Wilson could do some solo stuff. And this one's pretty, I don't know, boring. I guess you think they're all boring, but to me, this one's a little boring. The way it's structured, kind of one long song, and it's divided up, at least on Spotify where I listen to it. I don't know if it's like one track on a CD, which would be extremely annoying. But this one, you know, like half the songs aren't full songs. They're like a verse or a chorus or a bridge. And it kind of ruins for me the whole thing. It's just a lot of pointless noodling. And I get it. Like there's plenty of pointless noodling in this catalog, more than most people could bear. And, you know, I do hear the Pink Floyd, but it's like early Pink Floyd, like before they got good. So, well, I'll say after the debut and after Piper, but before Dark Side. So there's like kind of like that era where, you know, a lot of like pastoral sounds and ambiance, and not my favorite Pink Floyd era. And that seems to be what he's, you know, taking from for the most part. On this one, I think his voice is getting worse. I actually like his voice. I really like the harmonies he does. And even when he's doing normal singing, it's interesting the way, you know, it's very unaggressive and kind of laid back and a little, you know, mystical and twee at times. But I think he, for the most part, does a pretty good job. But on this one, he sounds a little tired and it seems a little light. And really, there's just no tracks that stand out other than Time Flies. And I think Time Flies is pretty good. I like the acoustic guitar sound, very melancholy, despite the bright acoustic guitars. And, you know, it's interesting enough. There's a lot of twists and turns and dynamics and loud and soft. But then after that, you know, it's pretty pretentious modern prog. And there's varying degrees, I think, of their pretentiousness. And I think this kind of crosses over to the point where there's just like nothing interesting at all. It's like all noodly, a lot of eerie soundscapes, modulated vocals, you know, you got like just a lot of background and ambient noise coming in here. There's just not enough songs. And I think they did a pretty good job before this doing some songs, especially starting with Stupid Dream up until you know, Dead Wing for the most part, or Fear the Blank Planet, I guess. But on this one, they kind of go back looking for that old sound, and it's just kind of boring to me. And there's just not really any good songs. So I have it at 2.5 stars for, I don't even remember what it's called, The Incident.
Incidentally, that comes much later for me. All right, my number 9, we've got Up the Downstair. But I'm making a drastic leap in quality and saying this is a decent record at 2.5. I don't think anything they do is like just ardently terrible. You know, it's nothing that ever I find repulsive or bad. And we're already up to 2.5, and we still got 9 of these bad boys to go. We don't go any higher, just a spoiler. But it's it's a tougher week than, like, if I just listened to one of these albums a week rather than all 11 a week, it was a bad week for just a bunch of mediocre, decent albums. Like this one. What are you listening to? Pretty cool opener. Vocals don't really do much for me. And I know you don't listen to Porcupine Tree for the vocals and the lyrics, but anything you put to tape is supposed to sound good, right? I always hated that argument. Well, you don't listen to ZZ Top for the rhythm section, or you don't go see ZZ Top for the rhythm section. It's like, no, but when I went to see ZZ Top, the rhythm section blew and it made everything else suck. I like the shift to the acoustic part a good bit. I like the groovy bass. Much better than the debut sound-wise. I like what Jason had to say as they get kind of better recording, although I don't think this one sounds quite as bad. Really cool beats and feel at time. Sometimes there's some really cool kind of trippy prog rock, good guitar. But like, you know, there's a lot of people out there that just think that some of their albums are great prog albums. And there's just no way they hold a candle to Yes or King Crimson or Genesis or Rush or all these other ones. There's just no way. There's just no way. The compositions aren't nearly as interesting. The playing is, musicianship's not as good. It's not even close. Number 9, Up the Downstair, 2.5.
I'll take that a step further and say that they don't even hold a candle to Dream Theater or Spock's Beard or any modern prog bands. They're just, the songwriting just isn't there on most of these records. My number 9 is Signify. This was the first one recorded as a full band. I think it's notably better sounding than the 2 before it, especially the drums, but I still don't find it sonically very interesting. It's very sterile, stock sounding. It's just like, imagine prog in your head. And that's exactly what it is. And Nothing exciting about it. I think the more well-made their records get, the more boring the records sound. It's like just loses any personality. Still have some bad electronics and dippy new age elements on the track Idiot Prayer, which is just truly a dreadful track, really terrible. It does have a pretty ripping solo at the end. It has a pretty ripping solo at the end, but not enough to save the track, which I think is an abomination. The vocals are so weak. Steven Wilson is not a good singer. He can sing in tune, and that's about it. There's no power or passion or strength. He's like the guy that, you know, we've all been in bands, and often when you're in a band, like a little garage band or something, there's no one around that can really sing. So you just, one of the guys just takes it up and does it, and, you know, it's maybe passable. But most of those guys don't become prog rock legends. This guy somehow just waltzed right through any type of gatekeeping system that exists in the music industry, and I don't know, making a living doing it, but he should not be. I cannot believe they never hired another singer, because he is not a good one. And this record, I don't know, I wrote, it sounds like a compilation of the most boring track from every Dream Theater album. And that's basically how I feel about it. 2 stars.
My number 9, I got The Sky Moves Sideways. Interesting album. I like the way it plays off Pink Floyd with the 2 longer pieces, sandwiching some shorter, more typical song structures there. The Sky Moves Sideways Phase 1. I like the synths, some very David Gilmour in the 80s sounding, in the 90s sounding guitar stuff. I like the way the drums sound. Got some like echo rec stuff going on there. You know, it's about 18 minutes long, and it gets pretty electronic in the second half, which is kind of weird. It has like this dance groove underneath, this zigzagging guitar work. There are flutes. It's interesting. I don't know if I like it, but it's interesting. I mean, I didn't have the same problem as you guys did with this one. To me, this week is kind of like, you know, Susie and the Banshees. It's not like my preferred style, but I think it all sounds pretty good. I was never bored for too long. I don't find anything offensive. I'm not gonna go on here and bash the drum sound. I think the drums sound fine. I think the guitar sounds fine. I don't think it's boring. It's interesting. I mean, I love Dream Theater. I like Dream Theater way more than Porcupine Tree, because I do miss the complex solos and the just ridiculous little keyboard stuff. But, you know, I didn't find this week to be offensive. I grew, most of these albums grew on me as I listened more. And despite like the, you know, ambient stuff and prodigious noodling, I thought, you know, most of these were pretty good. This album, I have it at 3 stars, just because, you know, the 2 songs in between, or the 3 songs in between The Sky Moves Sideways phases, phase 1 and 2, just not that interesting. Moon Touches Your Shoulder, it goes quiet and loud and soft and then hard, and, you know, that's pretty much the dynamics in a lot of these songs. Some are more interesting than others, though. And the second phase of Sky Moves Sideways, it's really long. It didn't need to be that long, but there's some really cool parts in it. And that kind of, you know, the crux of it is like, I think there's interesting things in every song pretty much, but they're kind of all the same interesting things. And it gets really boring to talk about every one. It's like, well, here's a quiet to loud dynamic, and here's a little cool, you know, guitar part that lasts 30, you know, not even like 5 seconds. And that's kind of like every song is the same thing. And I get it why you guys don't like it so much, I guess. But I don't know. I thought interesting to listen to, not that interesting to talk about, because we're not talking about lyrics. We're not talking about, you know, anything other than the song structure, basically, at this point, and the guitar and drum tones. But I don't know. So keep bashing them because that makes for good TV. I feel pretty, I mean, it's a 3-star album for me. So I didn't like it, and I wouldn't really listen to it again. It was fine. But
Yeah, I don't know why Joe's coming in with a sword and shield defending them when he's literally just giving them the same scores we are. So,
well, you guys though, I feel like you're just like completely checked out and just, are you even going to get to 3 stars? That's the question. Neither of you might. Yeah, no. So I'll eventually grow into them. This is just the bottom stuff. Nobody likes the bottom records.
I feel like Jason and I not liking this was very predictable. If we had a very contentious arguments on the video and in the comments section about the non-Lane Staley Alice in Chain records, where me and Jason just found them very boring. And I think this style kind of falls close to that mold, where it's just that really stiff, unstylistic kind of new hard rock that just does nothing. And I think that's, unless he's doing like the cosmic noodling and stuff, this is way more interesting than that Alice in Chains stuff to me, but still kind of, I don't know. Anyway, my number 8 is The Sky Moves Sideways. I actually dig the opener a little bit, and I kind of like the vocals, like the slow moving, ominous nature of it. Seems mystical and ancient in a cool way. It's cool prophetic vibes. Dislocated Day is okay. I think they write cool riffs a good bit on this album and have cool sound, but I just want my prog to be full of interesting experimental musicianship with a lot of different styles and influences kind of blended in with fusion. Most of the time, everything behind it is just so basic. I mean, if you did not have guitar solos and Steven Wilson's noodling on this, it would be like just the most boring band ever. Drums are straightforward, bass is uninteresting. Really good solo on Moon Tugs Your Shoulders. Sky Moves Part 2 is kind of cool. 2.5, it's decent. Sky Moves Sideways, number 8.
Just to touch on what Joe was saying about him not finding it offensive, I want to be clear. It does sound like I'm bashing it a lot, but I don't find it offensively bad, but just offensively boring and plain, which is sometimes worse, I think, especially when you have to listen to the entire catalog in a week and it's all just the same. So yeah, that's why these are getting 2 stars, which is poor and not, bad, terrible, atrocious type of scores. But actually, I'm moving up 2.5 stars for Stupid Dream, which is, I think, the beginning of them starting to try to get a little heavier. I think this is a heavier record than Signify, but they're not really good at being a heavy rock band yet. I think the fuzzy tone that opens up the first track, even though it sounds really crummy, just like overly distorted, and I don't know, it just doesn't sound too good to me. Another really boring vocal delivery on that track as well. That song has this really heavy bridge section, which is maybe like the first taste of metal that you get in the discography. And it is just like the most boring 1-chord bridge. Just they're doing like this chugging thing that is just, I don't know, really plain. Piano Lessons gets a little poppier. It's got like these kind of bouncy verses to it, which is kind of cool. I kind of prefer that type of sound rather than them trying to get all heavy and stuff. But again, I don't like the guitar tones. Some pretty nice acoustic guitar on Pure Narcotic. Again, weak vocals, but still one of their better tunes. I think the super fuzzy tone on this record on a Slave Called Shiver is a little better than it is elsewhere. There's several tracks on this record that feature flute, which is a nice change up. It makes me kind of wish they experimented more with auxiliary instrumentation like that. The track Don't Hate Me has flute and sax, both of which are really great. I like the slightly poppier songwriting, and there are some nice instrumental passages on this record. However, I think the kind of positives are a little bit offset by the heavier tunes, not really liking the guitar tones, and still pretty much all the vocals sucking. So 2.5 stars.
Jason really hates right around that turn of the century any type of rock production. It's just a switch goes off. After 1997, you just hate anything other than Incubus somehow from that era.
Well, everybody starts using like triggered drums, and every band has the exact same drum sounds, and it's just like, come on.
Okay, well, they do for a little bit. My number, what are we on, 8, whatever. Signify. It's getting a little more mainstream sounding. little less noodly. I think at this point they don't, it's kind of the worst of both worlds in some ways, because it's not that interesting song structures, and it's not quite, I don't think Steven Wilson has really grasped the melodic part and the song, like pop songwriting stuff yet. So this one's kind of awkward transitional record. You got some of that spoken word, like fake TV clips on Idiot Prayer, which I find really annoying. The title track, Waiting Phase 1, Sever, they're all kind of just like boring progressive rockers. I think the playing's good. I don't mind the playing on any of this. I think the bass lines are very strong on a lot of these songs, but it is very like riff heavy, without like those cool, interesting solos or something to break up just like the heavy, straight ahead rocking. And there's a lot of ambience on this record. I find it very soporific. It's a word. It means sleep inducing. There are some like cool, like you can see them pointing the way forward. I think the vocal arrangement on Every Home Is Wired is really pretty. It's a nice slide guitar, but it's just like good. It's not like great or exemplary. It's just like, okay, that's good. I at least like that. Light Mass Prayer is just complete noodly nonsense. But Dark Matter, I think, is really great and really shows what they could do. Pretty acoustic guitars to kick it off before it gets, like we say, it goes from soft to loud and then quiet and then light to dark. And it does that a lot, but I think it sounds good. There's some organ in there. I like the tone. I don't know what Jason's talking about. I like the tone on this album. And I think it's the right choice of direction. That's kind of basically they pick up on Stupid Dream like right from this track, which was the right move to make. So it's getting better. I only have this at 3 stars, but there are some hints of some cool stuff that they're doing here.
My number 7 is Dead Wing, 2.5. It is a soundtrack album to a screenplay that he and someone else wrote. That's like a ghost story. Opening track is okay. I don't really like the spoken word part. Shallow is pretty nice. Still kind of generic. Sounds like a big Collective Soul riff to me. It's not bad. Lazarus is actually really nice. This album is starting to soften up a little bit and starting to get a little prettier. Halo isn't bad. Not getting much like ghostly things here. But the songs seem a little bit more complete. They have pretty good momentum and pace. More emotional arc than like their really worst standard fare. Softer around the edges, like I said. Some good bass. Again, nothing really to highlight. I will also say that, obviously, I've already said I'm capping off at 2.5, which means I don't think there is a good Porcupine Tree album or one that I recommend. And I will double down and jump the gun for tomorrow and say, I don't even really think they have a good song. I'm not going to lie. Like, all of it is fine. It's all decent. Like, I look through these albums and I'm like, well, at least there's that 7-minute gem in there that is this song. No, I don't. And even Billy Joel has a song that I like. And, even Three Dog Night has a song that I like. So this was a rough week. So that's my number 7, Dead Wing, 2.5. The land of decency, people.
I'm going to back you up on that. I don't think they have a good song either. Every song that made my top 10 made it because of some like interesting element. Like, oh, there's like a sax in that one. That's cool. That'll make my list. But it doesn't mean it's a good song. My next one is The Incident, which I don't know, a little torn on this one because on one hand, I think at this point by 2009, I think, as far as like what they're doing, I think they're getting better at it. And, I think they're more well-made records and they sound better. But at the same time, this is like the maximum progginess, just double album, 75 minutes. The first disc is one 55-minute song that's broken into 14 parts. And it's just like, come on, do we have to do this? Like, can we do something that's like a little more interesting? There's really weird vocals on the song Drawing the Line. I didn't even think it was Steven Wilson at first. And I was like digging around trying to find a different vocal credit, but I guess it's him. It didn't sound like him at all to me. Not that it was spectacular or anything, but it was just a different sort of sound. I don't know, maybe he had a cold that day or something. I do kind of like the lyric concept of this record where he's talking about, or at least says he's talking about, the word incident and how it's used kind of casually to describe very like earth-shattering, momentous events that kind of just rock your world. And so he's talking about like all of these news stories and stuff that were described as incidents, which is cool. I think that's interesting. But listening to the record, there was never a moment where the lyrics stood out to me. And I was like, oh, that's a good lyric. So the description of what the record is about is cooler than actually listening to the record. Joe mentioned Time Flies, which I think is decent. It's got some cool soloing on it, kind of the centerpiece of the big epic track. And it was the band's final single until recently. But the whole thing is just like this musical blur. There's parts that are heavy, there's parts that are less heavy, but ultimately it all sounds the same. It's just pretty anonymous riffing. It's prog wankery minus the shredding. So I don't know. It's really, really just so long. And if you want to get somebody to remember anything about this, you've got to cut it down and serve it in smaller doses. Giving someone 75 minutes of this is just undigestible. I don't know how people distinguish different tracks, or you would have to listen to this like hundreds of times to be able to say like what songs you like. It's ridiculous. 2.5 stars.
For the record, I don't know either of these people. My number 7, I got Closure continuation, however you say it. The newest one, it's their reunion album. And I think this one has some very good highs, but many noodly lows that drag it down to 3.5 stars. But the songs I think that are good, that hit, some of my favorites in their catalog. But with, the same with most of their albums, there's a lot of fluff in here. And it starts off pretty good. Harridan's good. I like the metallic bass groove. Steven Wilson is playing the bass on this one. Drumming, I think, is great. When they made the switch to Gavin Harrison, I think that was the right choice. He's a much more progressive drummer, and they did this back a ways. I think In Absentia was his first one. So he's been there for a while, but I think his drumming is great on this album. Of the New Days, pretty good rocker. I like the production. It's the synths are just, everywhere, completely surround you. And, I think it sounds good. I think some good tones on there. Rat's Return has a lot of tricky, naughty riffage. Not a lot of singular instrumental freakouts here. It's all very synchronized and tight. No guitar solo at all, but I think what they do with the interlocking instrumentation is pretty cool. Dignity, like a lot. You can really hear the Pink Floyd, the Roger Waters on this one, especially in the intro. It gets bigger at the end. A cool lead bass solo in there. Probably the result of Steven Wilson playing them. He's like, well, if I'm going to be the bass player, I'm going to throw in some leads. And then it has at the end this Interstate Love Song guitar part, which is cool. Some good solo at the end as well. And then it has kind of a noodly wankery herd culling, Walk the Plank. It's got some bleeps and bloops. Population 3. Chimera's Wreck is cool, but it's too long at 9 minutes. But it ends really well with Never Have. Some cool legato pick guitar there. Underneath some cool piano riffs. Really like the major key. I thought it was very 70s prog, which was nice. They don't, I mean, it's weird for a prog band to not call back anything other than Pink Floyd and a little King Crimson. This one maybe gets a little Yes vibe in there, which is nice to hear. And then Love in the Past Tense is very pretty. It's got great slinky drumming and just a monster bass line from Steven Wilson, who's who does a really good job. I like a lot of the bass playing on a lot of the albums, but the fact that he's the lead singer and lead guitarist and now lead bassist, you can throw in some extra stuff in there to make it cool. So some really good stuff, but 20 minutes that I could just delete off the whole record and never think about it again. So 3.5 stars, but I thought this was a pretty good reunion effort for them.
My number 6 is Fear of a Blank Planet. Read it as black when I first looked at it, and goddamn, I just wanted a cover album of Public Enemy. Would have been just totally unique to hear Steven Wilson just do that album from start to finish. Alas, it is blank. It is one of their more interesting lyrical and thematic albums, but just more pretty generic alt prog metal stuff. Really can't take it much anymore. And we still got 6 more albums to talk about. And again, the drums and percussion and rhythm section for a prog band are incredibly lame and uninteresting and uninventive. My Ashes is pretty boring and predictable and tacky with the strings, but the second half of the album is much better than the first. That's why I have it up at 2.5. You get Alex Lifeson guesting, Robert Fripp guesting, anesthetize, you know the word, has some really cool guitar soloing on it. 17 minutes though, that's a lot of noodles and a lot of aimlessness. Bland metal sound without any fire, just not my bag. I do think Sleep Together is a pretty cool closer. 2.5. Fear of a Blank Planet. Joe's right. It is hard and not even fun to talk about it, because it's like, yeah, this is one of the ones that has one of the better noodlings, and this one has a cool dark atmosphere, and that's it, because they don't really ever do anything different from album to album. I've said my piece. I'll be back in a bit.
And my number 6 is also Fear of a Blank Planet. This is maybe the closest they ever got to sounding like Dream Theater. Mentioned Dream Theater a bunch already in the video, but this one is, I think, really kind of close to sounding like Dream Theater. That's definitely the sound, but the playing nowhere near as impressive. And even though I'm no huge James LaBrie fan by any stretch of the imagination, I think the melodies here are just nowhere near as good. At least Dream Theater gives you some kind of melody to like grab onto. At least like once every 15 minutes or so, you get like a nice catchy melody in a Dream Theater song. Nothing here really. My Ashes, I kind of like the vibe of that song. It's got like this real no quarter sound to it. That keyboard sound with the delay on it just really sounds a lot like Zeppelin. Then you get the big epic Anesthetize at almost 18 minutes long. Alex Lifeson plays the solo on the first part. And like the Adrian Belew solos on Dead Wing, it's one of the more memorable solos in the entire catalog. So I didn't even know that Lifeson and Belew played those solos at first on my first go round through the discography, and they stood out. I was like, oh, those are the best solos in the catalog. Turned out not a member of Porcupine Tree. So I don't know what that says about Steven Wilson as a guitarist, but I don't know. He never steps outside of his own box. Like everything he does is so predictable. And Lifeson and Belew are so unpredictable, and they play interesting parts. And it's just like they come in for a second and you're like, it could be so much better. All you need to do is just a little bit more of like pushing yourself into like unfamiliar territory. But they never really do. I don't know. This whole thing is just like Dream Theater light, a regression from the heavier and more intense and more tuneful Dead Wing. So I don't think this is quite as good as what they had been doing immediately previous this. I don't know. It's like AI created version of prog rock. It's just like if you gave an AI computer a ton of prog and gave it all the prog, this is what would come out. It's just like the most average version of the genre. So there you go, 2.5 stars for Fear of a Blank Planet. And I do also want to say, it was around this time, 2007, these records in this period, maybe going back to like In Absentia, a lot of people had these records on their albums of the year, like top 5, bragging them up, telling us we had to listen to these Porcupine Tree records back when we were doing that series. And all I have to say to that is like, you people need to listen to more music, because if this is in your top 5, what did you hear? 6 records?
Woo! All right. Let's see. I got Up the Downstair next. Still 3.5 stars. I think on this one they dispense with the boring soundscapes of apparently your favorite Porcupine Tree album. I guess I don't know, which is terrible. Still yet to be discovered by you too, which killing me here. I think this one, an actual album with actual songs. Synesthesia, not anesthetize. Some tough words on this one. Woo! I think it's pretty sweet. Really like the synesthesia and the always never movements. I hear some Gilmour, some Lifeson, even maybe a little Page in the guitars. I don't think it's anything overly flashy, but I think it's very cool sounding. I like the tone. I like the feel. There's some cool extended psych guitar solos, psychedelic. Maybe not psychedelic, but like psych. We'll just say psych. And I like his voice. I don't know what Jason's talking about. I think it's nice sounding. It's not overly. It doesn't take over the song. It's definitely not James LaBrie. It's just kind of there. It's one of the instruments that kind of blends together to make the Porcupine Tree stew. Up the Downstair has some interesting bass and drums. And I don't know if you guys listened to the remake where they redo some of the electronic drums. Gavin Harrison does, or the original. But yeah, in the original, the drums are electronic, so they sound weak. But the one I listened to, they redo some of the drums. It sounds a lot better. What else to say? I mean, it doesn't really matter, really. It's kind of all the same. It's a 3.5 star album. I like the way it sounds, but it's not that memorable. And I don't know, there's too much spoken word for me. That's always gonna be my complaint on these early albums. And not just like him speaking, but like random people talking, which really annoys me. Like the little radio clips and the like announcer voice that pops in. Like that is my least favorite thing. And there's too much of it here. But there are some cool stuff, guitar stuff on Burning Sky and Sideways. So 3.5 stars. It's interesting listen and better than the debut, but not quite enough like real melodies and song structures and stuff here for me.
Number 5. Here's what I've got on A Sunday Life, 2.5, and it is it's a normal 2.5. It's perfectly decent. I like the chilled Japanese garden kind of feel of the open. Jupiter Island is really lame and corny and kiddie. Some of these songs almost sound like a joke on like a Mr. Show sketch. Like, it's just really, really lame. I can't take it. I like the wild nature of Third Eye Surfer, though, and I think Nostalgia Factory is cool as hell. But I do think this one sounds really thin and really puny and packs no punch for what they're going for. I don't necessarily always want it louder or more powerful, especially on this album, but it definitely needs a lot more texture to it. And the narrative I don't find as interesting as they want me to. I actually find it a bit childish at times. Radioactive Toy has some really cool guitar, which is I want it to be here. That's what I want. Nine Cats is kind of cool. I don't like the vocals on Linton Samuel Dawson. Can't take it. Begonia Seduction Scene is one of my more favorite instrumentals since it's kind of dark and ominous. Closer is really cool. Love the bass. It's too long to really enjoy and hard to follow and not as interesting as they seem to think it is. 2.5 on A Sunday Life. Number 5.
My number 5 is In Absentia. This is when Gavin Harrison joins on drums, and they start to kind of wade into heavier territory. Everything that you read about this record, it kind of points out that this is the beginning of the progressive metal phase of the band. It's also when they joined a major label. And first of all, I don't want them to get heavier. That's not what I'm looking for. And I also don't think that's a strength of the band. But at the same time, even though it's known as kind of like the beginning of that era of the band, most of the record isn't super heavy or anything. Most of the songs have these really long passages of like quieter and moodier music, usually at some point shifting into like a big metal riff near the end. The problem with all those quieter moments is that they are far less tuneful than they were on Lightbulb Sun, which had way more melody. That was probably their most melodic record. I don't know, the quiet passages on this record, they're not really like moody, and they're not as grand as they are on earlier albums. You don't really hear that like Pink Floyd epicness on any of these tracks. I mean, it helps to have dynamics and contrast, but so much of what's going on in the quieter sections is just uninteresting. So you're just like kind of waiting for something to happen, and then they hit you with a heavy riff, which in itself isn't that interesting either. The Creator has a master tape, I think is a kind of a weird track. The groove on it reminds me of almost like an Incubus song or something. Even at their heaviest, it's never really intense or really aggressive. It's very polite metal. I think they're all good players, to be sure, but they never really flex enough for that to be like the main draw of the band. And the records are well recorded, but they're very safely produced, I think, and very generic sounding. The songwriting, I don't think, is very passionate, and at least the delivery of the lyrics never feels very personal. So I'm just not sure what the point is supposed to be to these records. It's professional sounding, but it doesn't do anything so well as to like be impressive or draw you in or make you feel connected to the artist in any way. So I don't know, 2.5 stars.
Woo! Number 5, I got Fear of a Blank Planet. Lyrics and concept were taken from a Bret Easton Ellis novel, Lunar Park, which is interesting. I guess I don't know if I remember a single lyric on any of these albums, like not even, I remember like one. I think they're all from In Absentia though. Fear of a Blank Planet, so it's a concept album. You got Alex Lifeson. Robert Fripp apparently appears, but I have no idea when or where or what he plays, because I don't remember anything cool at all on Way Out of Here, where he apparently guests. So that was a bit of a missed opportunity there. But the Alex Lifeson little solos, very Alex Lifeson-like, pretty cool. There's a lot of progressive metal riffage on here, some orchestrations, there's hush parts, there's loud parts, there's big lush arrangements. I think it keeps you on your toes. I mean, the dynamics, the constant switching. I guess after 11 albums, it does get a bit predictable because they kind of do it the same way a lot. But I still think it's cool. I like the way it sounds. I like the heavy stuff a lot more than Jason does. I think they do it pretty well. I like their riffs. And I like all the elements. I like the acoustic guitar sound. I like the louder riffs. I like when they add the extra instruments, which they don't do enough as far as I'm concerned. There's a lot of synths and stuff, but I'd like to see more, like Jason said, of like the tertiary, sax, more flutes, more mellotron, more organ, stuff like that. But the drumming on here is great. I really like Gavin Harrison's stuff. Unlike Ramsey, I think the rhythm section's probably the most interesting part of the whole band, although not quite on Lightbulb Sun or the earlier records before Gavin Harrison came along. He really kickstarted that proggy, like polyrhythmic stuff that he does. And I think Fear of Blank Planet's a good song. Great instrumentation. My Ashes, I like the orchestration. I think Sentimental has some really nice guitar and piano interplay. The complex drumming. There's some Spanish guitar in there. And the way Sleep Together builds towards that big symphonic ending is cool. Really like the big dramatic orchestration. And I don't know, I mean, again, I'm lost for like exact things to say about it because it's kind of the same thing again and again. Kind of sucks. I do like this album. I totally insist. I like this album. I have it at 4 stars. I think it's good. I mean, I like listening to it. I don't get tired of it. I listen to it 4 or 5 times this week. And it was good. I mean, it's not my preferred metal at all. I much prefer Dream Theater, Megadeth, Metallica, Iron Maiden, but I think it's a solid band. I like them more now than I did before. I thought Steven Wilson's solo stuff really does not do it for me at all. So I was dreading a little bit this week, but I think they're better than I thought. So I'm up to 4 stars for Fear of a Blank Planet.
Number 4 for me, In Absentia, 2.5. Hello, heavy, big riff to open, big shift into heavier prog metal here. So not crazy about the composition, so not crazy about the drum work, or much of anything really. Sounds very generic late 90s band that all of a sudden just sound just like a post grunge band that's like, let's turn it up and write slightly longer songs. Like, that's it. And I don't know. No grit, too polished. His voice isn't good for the more metal sound. Everything's basic, not much emotion, not much style. Cool solo and trains, I'll tell you that much. Again, the guitar work, saving grace of this band. Lips of Ashes is cool. It has those kind of CSNY sounding harmonies, which I like. Sound of Muzak does absolutely nothing for me. Cool riffage for sure on Wedding Nails. Creator has a master tape, it's kind of heavy and wild. I like some of the power on the album, but it never goes far enough, mean enough, powerful enough, interesting enough. And I kind of like the way they end albums a lot. I like Collapse the Light into the Earth. But, still just 2.5. No highlights, no really good songs. There we go. In Absentia. Number 4, baby.
All right, my number 4 is the new one, Closure/Continuation. This one was written collaboratively, which is a new approach for the band. Normally Wilson would demo the tracks and bring them in. And they wrote together. Wilson played bass during the initial jam sessions, and I think he plays bass on the whole record. And I think the result is, more interesting arranging and playing. Although, Wilson, he said he wasn't interested in the metal direction anymore. And, his solo records are, a little more in a jazz type of direction. But they come back and it's not too noticeably different from the prior Porcupine Tree records. Kind of, not super heavy metal or anything, but, heavy riffage and the normal kind of soft, loud dynamics that they normally do. Of the New Day, I think, is a decent tune. I think Barbieri's keyboard parts and the sounds that he's using stand out way more on this record than they ever have in the past. I don't know. He's got a really cool, spooky sound going on the track Rat's Return. I like the shimmering sound under the solo bridge section of Dignity. This record, still not really my thing, but I think it's a good version of what it's trying to be. And I think the people that dig Porcupine Tree will probably be pleased with it and think of it as a good comeback. I think it's one of their better sounding records as well. Gavin Harrison also seems to have really kind of grown as a drummer. I think his playing is quite impressive and technical on this throughout the record. So I think this is a step up from the other records that I've been talking about, but I do not care about this record at all, and I will never listen to it again. So it's hard for me to get it to 3 stars. So 2.5.
Is there an echo in here? 2.5, 2.5, 2.5. My number 4 is going to be Dead Wing. And another good album. It's very heavy. Michael Ackerfeldt. I don't know how to say that. It's Swedish. From Opeth, does backing vocals on a bunch of songs and even plays a guitar solo. Adrian Belew also plays a couple of guitar solos on here. So you got some really nice vocals. I think it's my favorite vocal album. And I believe there's a bunch of Mellotron on this album, or at least something that sounds like a Mellotron, a synth Mellotron or whatever, because it is very lush and nice, and I love that sound. So it improves it right there. The riff on Dead Wing to open the album is just excellent. Big fan of that one. The riff on Shallow, I think, is fantastic. That's one of the first Porcupine Tree songs I heard and downloaded back in the day. Lazarus is really pretty. Love the main piano riff. The doubled vocals on Halo sound great. That's something I wish they did more often. because I think Wilson is a very talented vocal arranger, even if he doesn't have the best voice. There are some songs on here that sound phenomenal with, you know, just him singing and a bunch of choral parts. But it seems like it's a little too sparse and few and far between. That'd be something I'd like them, you know, explore a whole album of that. I guess that's one of the problems. Like, I'd like to see that really like dialed in for a whole album instead of going back to the same like big heavy riff, quiet parts, acoustic guitar intro into big explosive prog section. Like do a whole album with choral vocals or something. I think that'd be awesome. But I think it's a good album, a lot of good riffs. I like the keyboard sounds a lot from Richard Barbieri on this one, I think more than any other, really. And it's just a good album. Glass Arm Shattering, like that. Melatonin Scratch, good. Arriving Somewhere But Not Here, doubled vocals are great on there. It's another Michael Ackerfeld one. So like when he does the double vocals, sounds great. Rhythm section's banging all over this one. And yeah, good hard rocking album, 4 stars.
Number 3, Signify, 2.5. I like the religious themes all over this, at least in the song titles and some of the spoken word stuff that comes in. Cool psychedelia throughout, without it being too sidewindy. Title track packs much more punch and bite than the previous stuff and is a really cool kind of prog metal sound, more than the chilled out vibes of the first 3 albums. Starting to get that double kick drum coming in. Ultimately, though, it's rather uninteresting. I just don't find that this album has the compositions. Waiting Phase 1 is decent. I like Waiting Phase 2 a little more with that deep bass and relaxed kind of little conga beat, I think. I don't know, drums. They play with precision, but not a lot of feeling and just a lot of mid-tempo noodling here. I like when that little floating synth part comes in on Idiot Prayer. I have Idiot Prayer on my list tomorrow. I think Jason is crazy for thinking it's terrible. It's merely lousy. And I dig the big lush harmonies on Every Home is Wired. I think Joe called that. Good call there. Intermediate Jesus has a cool rhythm section. This is the first time I'm applauding the rhythm section. So yeah, their third best album, decent. Signify. 2.5.
All right, my number 3 is On the Sunday of Life. So no, it is not my winner, but this record compiles tracks from 2 cassettes that Stephen Wilson made. So I don't know if it's even really like a official studio album. It seems to be considered like a real record at this point, but it's definitely the least Porcupine Tree sounding album. They weren't really even a band at this point. It's all Stephen Wilson with just a couple guests on it. As an album, Joe's right. It's a total mess. It's all over the place. A lot of it not even really proggy. It's kind of new wavy at times, experimental art pop. It's very, very different from what he would do in the future. Jupiter Island, Cram said that he didn't like it, that it was corny. It kind of is corny, but I don't know. It's got this like weird playfulness to it. It kind of sounds like the song Brian Eno by MGMT. It's kind of what it reminded me of. There's some long ambient instrumental jazzy new age passages, which I don't really care for. Radioactive Toy is okay, but again, I hate the guitar tones. Sounds really kind of like fake or modeled, processed. Nine Cats, I think is also okay, but awful drum sounds and really exposes Wilson as a very weak vocalist. Linton Samuel Dawson has like these weird, like pitched vocals. It reminds me of something like Steve Vai would do. Also kind of sounds like They Might Be Giants doing like an early Pink Floyd cover or something. It's really bizarre and not necessarily good, but I think it's one of the most interesting tracks in the catalog. So I kind of like it for that. It's at least a little something different. And that's basically how I feel about the album. It's not good, but at least it has like some really weird, interesting moments. It's way too long, 18 tracks, an hour and 16 minutes. It's got a few moments of like oddball pop that kind of, you know, at least draw my ear in and kind of wake me up a little when, I'm falling asleep through these long instrumental passages. 2.5 stars.
Right. My number 3 is going to be Stupid Dream. This one's a little less ambient, more rocking, more riffage. Still plenty of dynamics, but it feels like a traditional, like 90s, almost alt rock album. It sounds a little too 90s. I think the tones and stuff aren't quite as good. It sounds a little processed sounding, as you will have in the late 90s. This came out in 99. Just not quite organic enough to be like really good. But I think this one's pretty good. I think it apes a little bit of the sound of the bends, actually. It's interesting. They name check the bends in this, and that like big acoustic, full acoustic guitar attack that opens up a bunch of these songs really makes me think of like Nice Dream and stuff from the bends. So that's at least interesting. Even Less, I think, is good opener. Got some strings in there. I think his voice sounds good here, the best he's sounded. A little more elastic than we've heard before. The higher notes come a little more natural. Piano Lessons, pretty sure that's just the Mary Jane's Last Dance riff. Kind of progifies it, which is cool. Pure Narcotic is the one that name checks the bends. It's a pretty nice melody. I mean, I think it's a nice melodic acoustic rock song. Not, completely unique, but I think it sounds nice and is sung well. Slave Called Shiver has almost a trip hop groove, which is cool. And got some lonesome piano hits and some big distorted guitar riffs. I like the way it's compiled and produced and arranged. Just interesting sounding. I mean, I don't quite get what Kramzer was saying. I think it's like a 90s alt rock band, but it's much more interesting as far as the way it's all put together. This Is No Rehearsals acoustic guitar intro really sounds like Nice Dream to me. That's the one that really stood out as a rollicking, memorable guitar solo, and balances the melodicism and the heaviness quite well. Nice intersection of Radiohead and Dream Theater. Stranger by the Minute is a good, not too progressive rock song. They shy away a lot from the like longer, more progressive stuff on this album. It really has the structure almost of, I think I wrote down, who did I write down? Like a Gin Blossoms almost. Like it's interesting how 90s and how alt rock, college rock sounding it is, despite having all these like, a little more progressive instrumentals and a little more naughty structures. Stop Swimming, cool way to end it. Love the jazzy percussion, heavy piano. Reminds me a little of post-rock and a little talk vibes in there, maybe showing some of the shared DNA between post-rock and like Pink Floyd ambience pre-Dark Side. So I thought this is a pretty good album. Definitely grew on me. 4 stars for Stupid Dream. Is that a callback to Nice Dream by Radiohead? I didn't even realize that till now. Who knows? Maybe.
My number 2 is Closure Continuation, 2.5. I think this is clearly the best sounding album in their catalog. And it might also have the least amount of turds in it. But one of the turds is Dignity, which is really lame. There's some close to highlights on here, but not quite. I think the opener, Harden, is really cool, nice and heavy, satisfyingly proggy opener. Rat's Return is a really cool groove and riff. Head Curling and Walk the Plank are slightly different fare for them, which is a nice change of pace. Chimera's Wreck is all right. Songs are a little bit better, but the musicianship still falls short. Although there's a little more character and a little more going on to communicate here. Population 3 is big and epic. Wilson, for 11 years later, still sounds the same, which might not be a good thing. Actually, maybe some age and gravel in his voice could have done him some justice, but whatever. I like the piano and Never Have. Again, the piano and the CSNY kind of sounding harmonies are my bread and butter with the noodling. Still don't really like his voice or singing style, but I noticeably got through it easier than 9 other albums. So Closure, Continuation, the newest one, 2.5.
All right, my number 2 is Light Bulb Sun. I think tonally it's their best sounding record to date up to 2000. I still think some of the guitar tones are terrible, like the heavy riff in the title track, but I think they've shed some of the blatant Pink Floyd ripoff type of sound by this point. They're getting a little more song focused, a little more melodic, not full on pop, but you've got songs with some recognizable song structures and melodies. She's Moved On is a decent song, cool guitar solo in that one. Last Chance to Evacuate Planet Earth Before It's Recycled is interesting. It's kind of like starts like almost as like a country song or bluegrass thing, and then morphs into like this pretty cool, moody, atmospheric piece. The Rest Will Flow has a nice melody and really cool string arrangement. Where We Would Be is an acoustic ballad, which is kind of cool to hear from them. Basically like a singer-songwriter type of song. The solo on it is pretty cool. And I think that track probably has one of the best guitar tones in their catalog. That guitar solo sounds really good. Feel So Low finds Wilson singing in a register that works a little better for his voice. He sounds way more comfortable. It's just, he's like, has this real nice, like slightly lower, relaxed delivery on it. And I think he's sounding pretty good there. And like you said, whenever he layers his vocals, it's usually at least more interesting. He is very good at arranging vocals. I'll give him that. 2.5 stars.
That was definitely the nicest thing you've said about him today. So at least he's good at arranging vocals and producing and restoring better bands' prog albums. Or maybe not. Maybe Jason doesn't even like that about him. Jason hates everything about Steven Wilson. It's amazing. My number 2 is going to be In Absentia. This one's way darker, way heavier, way more progressive, thanks to Gavin Harrison, the drummer. He's doing all sorts of complex beats on this one. Definitely the closest they get to Dream Theater and modern progressive metal. Really like Blackest Eyes. This is the one album I think where the lyrics really stand out. He's kind of going through like the minds of like the dregs of society, serial killers, and like people should be in jail, abusers and stuff like that. So this one, the concept I think is interesting, and they pull it off pretty well. Lots of good, pretty acoustic guitars, lots of big, loud rockin' passages, just like all the other albums. Some spacey stuff, lots of dynamics, kind of the same dynamics as all the other ones, but I think they sound a little bit better, and the complexity of them on this one is better. Trains, I think, is really great. I love the acoustic guitar sound. I love the singing. Love the use of Mellotron on this, because a little King Crimson-y feel. And the vocal arrangement, great. And I love the little banjo interlude, which is interesting. It reminds me a little bit of Cabinescence, which is also about trains. So I don't know if that was a deliberate little throwback or something, but I think it works really well. The quick changes in mood, the light and heavy dynamics. Lips of Ashes, get a little Genesis on that, like the swirling instrumentation. I think the rhythm section of The Sound of Music is very impressive, like the guitar solo. Got a bit of a 90s college rock vibe to it. Got some ba-da-da backing vocals in it. Dream Theater meets Gin Blossoms. That's what I wrote for that. Wedding Nails, good guitar parts, some slick instrumentation. Again, just great drumming. Prodigal, great bass line. Like the slide guitar. I think that's a cool wrinkle. Phasery guitar solo. Reminds you a little of Radiohead on that. There's a little bit of those like ambient, noodly, talk singing stuff on The Creator Has a Master tape, which I don't love. But for the most part, it stays away from that, stays away from the ambience. A lot more riffs, a lot more heaviness. Strip the Soul's a monster. Love that bass riff. And Heart Attack and Lay By, great complex vocal arrangements. And I really like the arrangement of Collapsed Light into Earth. It's very intricately arranged. Like the strings, like the full synths, very regal sounding. And it's not the greatest album of all time. It's not my favorite prog metal, whatever, modern prog metal album, but I think it's a very solid 4-star album for In Absentia.
My favorite Porcupine Tree album, The Incident. What the hell am I doing preferring the longest Porcupine Tree album as my favorite? Does it make sense? No, it doesn't. But it was my favorite. I thought The Incident, the 55-minute track, composed into 16 parts or whatever, not bad, because there is a good amount of variety in this. I mean, it's not just the dark to light, slow to fast, heavy, and they never really get that fast, like light to heavy. You know, it kind of moves around a little bit. Still not great, just 2.5 stars, but it propels you into like just a little bit of feeling because you're getting moved around a lot. I like the somber touches on Kneel and Disconnect. I think the title section is cool. Yeah, there's some good craft. The songs change scenery enough, or the parts change scenery enough to make it interesting. Circle of Manias is really kind of cool and crazy. And then I think after the big 55-minute epic, the second half is pretty cool too, with like songs like Flicker, which does that CSNY thing again, I think is pretty cool. Bonnie the Cat's kind of bizarre, as like a weird, funky metal jazz kind of thing. So yeah, it was the most interesting mediocre album they got. So 2.5, my favorite PT album. We're going with The Incident.
All right, my favorite Porcupine Tree record is Deadwing from 2005. It's the first record with more than just Steven Wilson listed as the producer. Wilson, Harrison, and Barbieri all get producer credits on this one. Like Cram said, it's a soundtrack for a film that they never secured funding for, so they just took the songs that were going to be in the soundtrack and made it into a full record. And the record before this, In Absentia, is kind of, like I said, the beginning of the prog metal era, but I thought that record did a really poor job of making the heavier parts of that record like sound heavy, and even the heaviest parts aren't really in your face. But I think here the heaviness is more well recorded or appropriately mixed. It actually feels aggressive. There's like some crack in the snare, some click in the kick drum, some double bass parts, and it's, you know, more compressed and more in your face. And often on this channel and elsewhere, people talk about compression like it's a horrible thing, like, oh, it's too compressed. But if you want something to sound aggressive and in your face, slap a little more compression on it. It's not necessarily an awful thing. It's not a sin to put compression on something. And this record sounds fairly compressed, but I think it works for what they're going for. I think this record has their best guitar tones to date. You've got a couple solos on this record from Adrian Belew, which I think are super cool, especially the one on the title track. However, the talk singing on that track is a little bit lame. It reminds me a little bit of Geddy's rap on Roll the Bones. Lazarus is a nice song. I think it's a return to kind of like earlier albums like Lightbulb Sun and Stupid Dream, where they were a little more focused on melody. Halo is pretty catchy and has some great drumming. And that track, you know, for as heavy as it is pretty tuneful, and rarely do those two things happen at the same time in Porcupine Tree. It's usually one or the other. And on the whole, I just think it's more tuneful, a little better produced. I think the production is better suited for the heavy sound that they're going for. Still nothing that I would seek out to listen to on my own, but I think they are more successful at what they're trying to do here. It is a real strong 2.5. It's just not quite getting there. Right on the doorstep of 3.
Man, maybe one day it'll cross the threshold to 3 stars. Probably not. He'll never think about Porcupine Tree again. Will Cramser. I will think about them again. My number 1, 4 stars, Lightbulb Sun. I think it's a pretty cool album. It is mainstream sounding, but it's got like those prog elements, which is cool, the metal elements. So it's a nice, you know, it's like a crossroads of a bunch of different styles. I think it works well. Lightbulb Sun has a really badass bass line. I think Wilson's vocals never sounded better than on this album. I think he sings it well, and the choral arrangement on Lightbulb Sun is excellent. Really like it. Love the slide guitar. The main lead is really melodic and fantastic sounding. I like Little Waltz, How's Your Life Today? 4 chords that made a million. It kind of sounds like a typical alt rocker, a little, maybe like a smidge of prog sprinkled on, but nothing too crazy. She's Moved On has really pretty sounding choral vocals again. The arrangements are great. It's a little 70s sounding as far as the structure, but a contemporary instrumental sound. So that's interesting. It kind of sounds a little bit like Aerials by System of a Down, but although it came before it. The only track on here I don't love is Last Chance to Evacuate Planet Earth, of course, recycled because it has that talking, the little announcer stuff in it. Too much talking, not enough rocking is what I always say. Say it every day. Like the orchestral arrangement on The Restful Flow. I like their orchestration stuff. I think it's all tastefully, prettily arranged. And, they're not a perfect band. I think it's probably overrated by a lot of the community, but I think they're all good players. I think Steven Wilson's a very good arranger. He's a decent singer. I think there was more melodicism than I was expecting, mostly knowing the heavier stuff that came after this. So I thought there was a lot of pretty stuff. I really like Hate Song and Rush on Ice, longer tracks with a lot of dynamic parts. Rush on Ice especially has just a ton of cool leads and big crescendos and decrescendos and releases. And I thought it was a really cool track, some really great bass stuff going on there. And I really like the bass. I think Colin Edwin has a ton of great bass parts. So I definitely enjoyed that aspect of the band. And I dug this. I dug a lot of their albums. 4 stars for Lightbulb Sun.
All right, so there you go. There's the listography of Porcupine Tree. Well, congratulations if you made it this far, especially if you're a Porcupine Tree fan. Get a gold star. Thanks for watching. Hit the like button. Let us know what you think of Porcupine Tree in the comments, how you rank their records, what you think of our takes. And check out the video description as well. And you can find links to Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, our website, merch, and our Patreon if you're interested in supporting the channel. And thanks for watching. We'll see you tomorrow for our top 10 least bad Porcupine Tree songs.